Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The doorbell chimed, its sudden sound piercing through the quiet morning air. Finn froze, his heart leaping into his throat. He glanced down at the flowing fabric of the emerald green dress he had just slipped on, panic rising in his chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not now. Not like this. He had been so careful, always timing his deliveries when he knew he'd be alone. But somewhere along the line, he had slipped up, made a mistake. And now, standing in the middle of his living room, dressed in a garment that society said he shouldn't wear, Finn faced a moment of truth he wasn't prepared for. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Finn's mind raced. Should he ignore it? Pretend he wasn't home? But what if it was a package that needed signing? His thoughts whirled, a maelstrom of fear and indecision. Before he could stop himself, muscle memory took over. Years of ingrained politeness propelled him forward. His hand was on the doorknob, turning it, pulling the door open before his brain could catch up and scream at him to stop. Bright morning sunlight flooded in, momentarily blinding Finn. He blinked rapidly, his vision clearing to reveal the mailman standing on his porch, a small package tucked under one arm.
"Good morning, ma'am,"
the mailman said, cheerfully.
"I've got a package here for—"
He glanced down at the label, then back up at Finn.
"Finn Thompson."
Finn's mouth went dry. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure the mailman could hear it. This was it. The moment he'd dreaded for years. He opened his mouth, searching for words, for an explanation, for anything. But the mailman just smiled, holding out the package and an electronic signature pad.
"If you could just sign here, please."
Finn blinked, confusion momentarily overriding his panic.
What?"
The mailman's smile never wavered.
"The package, ma'am. I just need a signature."
"Ma'am." The word echoed in Finn's head. The mailman thought he was a woman. He hadn't realized, hadn't noticed anything amiss. With trembling hands, Finn took the signature pad and scrawled something that might have been his name. The mailman handed over the package with another smile.
"You look beautiful today, by the way,"
he said, casually.
"That green really suits you."
Finn stood there, package in hand, as the mailman tipped his hat and turned to leave.
"Have a wonderful day, ma'am."
The door closed with a soft click, leaving Finn alone in the sudden silence of his living room. He looked down at the package, then at his reflection in the hallway mirror. The person staring back at him was him, but also not. The emerald dress hugged his figure in a way that softened his angles, the color bringing out flecks of green in his hazel eyes. For the first time, Finn saw what the mailman had seen. Not a man in a dress, but a woman. Beautiful, natural. A laugh bubbled up from his chest, surprising him with its intensity. The fear that had gripped him moments ago melted away, replaced by a giddy sort of relief. He twirled, watching the skirt of the dress flare out around him. This moment, this accidental reveal, became a turning point for Finn. The world hadn't ended. No one had pointed and laughed. Instead, he had been complimented, treated with kindness and respect. Over the next few weeks, Finn found himself growing bolder. He started small, wearing a touch of mascara to the grocery store, painted toenails hidden in his shoes at work. Each tiny step, each moment where the world continued to turn without comment, built his confidence. One sunny Saturday, Finn decided to take a bigger leap. He put on a floral sundress, applied light makeup, and styled his growing hair into soft waves. With a deep breath, he stepped out of his house and walked to the local park. The sun warmed his skin as he strolled along the path, nodding politely to joggers and dog walkers. No one gave him a second glance. To them, he was just another person enjoying the beautiful day. Finn found a bench overlooking a small pond and sat down, closing his eyes and tilting his face towards the sun. For the first time in years, he felt truly at peace.
"Excuse me,"
a voice said, startling Finn out of his reverie. He opened his eyes to see an elderly woman standing before him, a gentle smile on her face.
"I hope I'm not bothering you, dear,
but I just had to tell you how lovely your dress is. The pattern reminds me of one I had when I was your age." Finn's heart swelled with warmth.
"Thank you,"
he said softly.
"That's very kind of you to say."
The woman's smile widened. "Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so nice to see young people embracing pretty things. The world needs more beauty in it, don't you think?" Finn nodded, returning her smile.
"I couldn't agree more."
As the woman wandered off, Finn felt a sense of belonging wash over him. He wasn't an outsider, a freak, or a person to be mocked. He was just another human being, appreciated for the beauty he chose to bring into the world. The park became Finn's sanctuary, a place where he could be himself without fear. Each visit built his confidence, each positive interaction reinforcing that he was accepted, even admired. One day, as Finn sat on his usual bench, a young girl approached him, her mother trailing behind. The girl, no more than 7 or 8, pointed at Finn's powder blue dress. "I like your dress," she said, with the straightforward honesty of a child. "It's pretty like the sky." Finn smiled, touched by the simple compliment. "Thank you. I like your dress too. The polka dots are very cheerful." The girl beamed, twirling to make her skirt flare out. Her mother, who had caught up, smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry if she's bothering you."
"Not at all,"
Finn assured her.
"It's always nice to meet a fellow dress enthusiast."
The mother laughed, relaxing. "She'd wear nothing but dresses if I let her. Says pants are boring."
"Smart girl,"
Finn said with a wink, making the child giggle. As the pair walked away, Finn felt a warmth spreading through his chest. These interactions, so simple and yet so profound, were changing him. He was becoming more comfortable in his skin, more confident in who he was. At home, Finn began to experiment more. He ordered makeup tutorials online, practicing contouring and eyeshadow techniques. He learned to style his hair in different ways, reveling in the transformative power of a simple updo or a sleek ponytail. His wardrobe expanded, filled with clothes that made him feel beautiful and confident. Dresses in every color of the rainbow, skirts that swished when he walked, blouses that softened his silhouette. Each new item was a step towards fully embracing this part of himself. Finn's newfound confidence began to spill over into other areas of his life. At work, he found himself speaking up more in meetings, offering ideas he would have previously kept to himself. His coworkers noticed the change, commenting on his increased energy and positivity.
"Whatever you're doing, Finn, keep it up,"
his boss said after a particularly successful presentation.
"You're really shining lately."
If only they knew, Finn thought with a secret smile. As the months passed, Finn's double life began to feel less like a secret and more like two equally valid parts of himself. He was Finn, the hard-working office employee who wore crisp button-downs and slacks. And he was also Finn, the woman who turned heads in flowing dresses and perfectly applied lipstick. Both were real. Both were him. The more Finn embraced his feminine side, the more he realized that gender wasn't a binary, but a spectrum. He didn't have to choose between being a man or a woman. He could be both, or neither, or something in between. What mattered was that he was being true to himself. One evening, as Finn was returning home from a walk in the park, he ran into his neighbor, Mrs. Johnson. She was struggling with her groceries, bags threatening to spill from her arms. Without hesitation, Finn rushed to help her.
"Here, let me give you a hand with those,"
he said, taking several bags from her. Mrs. Johnson looked up, relief washing over her face.
"Oh, thank you, dear. You're always so kind."
She paused, taking in Finn's appearance, a lavender sundress and strappy sandals. Her eyes widened slightly, but then she smiled. "You know, I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Margaret Johnson." Finn felt a moment of panic. Would she recognize him? Would she react badly? But then he remembered all the positive experiences he'd had over the past months. He took a deep breath and smiled back. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Johnson. I'm Finn Thompson." Mrs. Johnson's eyebrows rose, but her smile never faltered. "Well, Finn, it's a pleasure to finally meet you properly. And may I say, that color looks absolutely lovely on you." As they walked to Mrs. Johnson's door, chatting about the unseasonably warm weather and the state of her garden, Finn felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Another hurdle crossed. Another fear conquered. After helping Mrs. Johnson with her groceries, Finn returned to his own home, feeling lighter than air. He caught his reflection in the hallway mirror and smiled at the person he saw there. No longer was there a divide between the Finn who wore suits and the Finn who wore dresses. They were one and the same. Just Finn, in all his complexity and beauty. That night, as Finn prepared for bed, he made a decision. It was time to stop compartmentalizing his life. He didn't want to hide anymore. He wanted to be fully, authentically himself. All the time. The next morning, Finn woke up early. He stood in front of his closet, looking at the two distinct sections, masculine on one side, feminine on the other. With a deep breath, he began to mix them together. Dresses hung next to suits, blouses beside button-downs. It was a visual representation of the integration he felt within himself. He chose his outfit carefully, a pair of well-fitted slacks, a silky blouse in a soft pink, and a blazer that added structure to his silhouette. He applied light makeup, just enough to enhance his features without being overly noticeable. His hair, now past his shoulders, was pulled back into a neat ponytail. Finn looked at himself in the mirror. He saw strength in the line of his jaw, softness in the curve of his cheeks. He saw the man he had always been, and the woman he had discovered. Most importantly, he saw himself, whole and unafraid. With his head held high, Finn walked out of his house and headed to work. He knew there would be questions, possibly even some negative reactions. But he also knew that he was ready to face whatever came his way. As he entered the office, heads turned. Whispers followed him as he made his way to his desk. But Finn didn't falter. He smiled and greeted his coworkers, as he always did. His boss, Mr. Harrison, approached his desk mid-morning.
"Finn, could I see you in my office for a moment?"
Finn nodded, his heart racing, but his resolve firm. He followed Mr. Harrison, aware of the eyes following him. Once the office door closed behind them, Mr. Harrison turned to face Finn. There was a moment of silence. Then he spoke.
Finn, I've noticed a change in you over the past few months. You've become more confident, more engaged. Your work has improved significantly.
Finn nodded, unsure where this was going. Mr. Harrison continued.
I think I understand now where that change has come from. You've been becoming more yourself, haven't you?
Finn swallowed hard, then nodded again.
Yes, sir. I have.
A smile broke across Mr. Harrison's face.
Well, Finn, I want you to know that we value you here. Not just your work, but you as a person. Your authenticity, your courage. These are assets to our team.
Relief washed over Finn.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot to me. Now,
Mr. Harrison said, his tone becoming more businesslike.
I assume you're aware that your appearance today might cause some discussions among your co-workers. How would you like us to handle that?
Finn thought for a moment.
I'd like to address it myself, if that's all right. Maybe at the team meeting this afternoon?
Mr. Harrison nodded approvingly.
I think that's an excellent idea. And Finn, I'm proud of you.
The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Finn could feel the curious glances, hear the hushed conversations, but he focused on his work, drawing strength from the knowledge that his boss supported him. When the time came for the team meeting, Finn felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. As everyone settled into their seats, Mr. Harrison opened the floor to Finn. Taking a deep breath, Finn stood up. He looked around at his coworkers, people he had worked alongside for years. Some looked confused, others curious. A few even smiled encouragingly.
I know my appearance today has probably raised some questions,
Finn began.
The truth is, this is who I am. I've spent a long time hiding parts of myself, trying to fit into a box that was never the right shape for me. But I've realized that I don't have to choose between being one thing or another. I can be all of who I am.
He paused, gathering his thoughts.
I don't expect everyone to understand right away, but I do hope that you can respect my choice to be authentic. I'm still the same Finn you've always known. I'm just not hiding anymore.
The room was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, people began to applaud. Finn felt tears prick at his eyes as his co-workers stood up, offering words of support and encouragement. As the meeting broke up, people came up to Finn individually. Some had questions, which Finn answered as best he could. Others simply offered their support. A few even shared their own stories of struggling to be themselves in the workplace. By the end of the day, Finn felt drained but elated. He had faced one of his biggest fears and come out stronger for it. As he packed up his things to leave, he noticed a small gift bag on his desk that hadn't been there before. Inside was a beautiful silk scarf in shades of blue and green. A note attached read, "To Finn, may you always have the courage to be yourself, from your work family." Finn wrapped the scarf around his neck, the soft fabric a reminder of the acceptance and love he had found. As he left the office, head held high, he knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The journey ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and possibly even rejection from some. But Finn was no longer afraid. He had found strength in vulnerability, beauty in authenticity. As he walked home, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant hues, Finn felt a sense of peace settle over him. He was Finn Thompson, not a man, not a woman, but a person, complex, multifaceted, and finally, truly free. The emerald green dress that had started this journey hung in his closet alongside his suits and casual wear. It was no longer a secret, no longer a source of shame or fear. It was simply a piece of clothing, one of many that allowed Finn to express all facets of himself. Finn unlocked his front door, stepping into the home that had once felt like a hiding place, but now felt like a sanctuary. He caught his reflection in the hallway mirror, the soft blouse, the tailored slacks, the subtle makeup, the silk scarf. He smiled at the person looking back at him. "Hello, Finn," he said softly to his reflection. "It's nice to finally meet you." And with that, Finn closed the door on his old life and stepped fully into his new one. A life of authenticity, courage, and self-love. The journey had been long, but as Finn settled into his true self, he knew that every step had been worth it. The future stretched out before him, full of possibilities. There would be more challenges to face, more growth to experience. But Finn was ready for it all. He had found his truth, and he would never let it go again. As night fell, Finn sat by his window, looking out at the stars. He thought about the mailman who had unknowingly set this all in motion, the kind strangers in the park, his supportive boss, his accepting co-workers. Each had played a part in his journey, reminding him of the goodness that existed in the world. He thought about the young girl who had complimented his dress, seeing beauty without prejudice. He hoped that she would grow up in a world that continued to become more accepting, more understanding of the vast spectrum of human expression. Finn's phone buzzed with a message from a coworker inviting him to join a group for drinks the next evening. "We'd love to get to know the real you," the message read. Finn smiled, typing out his acceptance.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!